Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamey Daddy channel. So one of the really interesting things about Ubisoft is they don't necessarily hide their IPs that they're working on for a very long time. And what I mean by that is whenever they have an unannounced project, it's only a matter of time before they actually talk about it. Now, they could be working on the prototypes and stuff for a long period of time, but usually they let the cat out of the bag at almost a very opportune time. And I think this is something that gets to tie into the Division 3 and why I think and why I believe strongly that there's going to be another game in the series. And there are a few indicators that do point to it. And I've been saying some of these things for a while and talking about them in numerous videos and in numerous forums, saying that as we see the Division 2 start to wind down, there are specific markers that will tell us whether the developers have a Division 3 in the works or when they're going to reveal this Division 3 IP. So before we jump into all of this, let us start looking at the markers that are showing or pointing towards a Division 3. So in my early videos a while ago, when I was first proposing the hypothesis that we would have a Division 3, one of the big things that I did say, and I've always continued to say, is by the time we're getting closer to that point, it seems like the developers are going to start to open the floodgate and give a lot of functionality, quality of life things, and even improvements in the game that will make the player feel very strong. Achievements and feats that were very challenging to get to, weapons and power fantasies that seemed far out of reach, they were going to make them available. And if we've looked, just Title Update 11 and the proposal for Title Update 12 alone seems to have been much more of a juggernaut than almost everything we got in the TU9 and TU10 cycle in terms of quality of life. I mean, look at everything so far, from the customized targeted loot that you have at the summit. Look at what you have coming very soon with the optimization station. Look at the exotics that are coming in that are actually being tested in the PTS that the developers have actually gone to buff in some cases how they work. And I don't think the developers are in a place where they're really worried about the grind anymore. I think what they're probably going to be trying to work on right now is everything that, you know, the division players have actually been looking forward to or asking for. They're going to start dropping it. They added extra loadouts. They added extra space in our backpacks, rather than, you know, give us extra stash space, but because they're giving us a whole bunch of new gear, we're getting 50 more slots, and all these other things seem to be pointing to this extremely, you know, generous giving spirit that I've been telling everybody about. And I think it's a precursor to advertising a new Division game. And then if you even wanted to move further from that, the Division right now, or Massive Sweden, the studio that is an Ubisoft studio that made and came up with the IP, the Division 1 and Division 2, are currently hiring for an unannounced project. If you go on massive.se, you're going to see under the career section that they have job openings for, you know, different people in the gaming sector, especially the technical side, that are going to be hired for a project that they have not announced. And for those of us who know currently, we know that they have announced the game Avatar. They made the announcement in 2017 for that game. And so any other project that they are talking about on their website that they haven't announced will be a very small pool of projects. It's either they're making 2 brand new IPs, which I doubt they're making because that would really stretch them. I think that the plausible and easiest answer is that this so-called unannounced project that they're hiring people for consistently is a Division 3 game. And it makes a lot of sense because Ubisoft's business model follows through with these sequels. And then when you also want to say, how is the season going to wind down? I guess my initial hypothesis was at the end of season 4, they're probably going to drop one more DLC package that is going to be some kind of a goodwill. But to be very fair, I don't know if this is going to still happen. I think it will. I mean, if you think about basically how these new improvements are kind of warming the community back up to the game, I think they may use season 4 as kind of a close, you know, kind of the finale of the Division 2. And in my opinion, I think it's a worthwhile finale. I think the Division 2 would have probably had a lot more to offer, but at some point in the game, we had a lot of just a lot of different issues happen within the game that didn't necessarily allow for any more relevance and any more, I would say, public hype or whatever you want to call it, or continuation in terms of the community continuing to foster, playing the game and all of that. And so I think overall, from a business perspective, it makes sense to reboot whatever it is that they have brought from the Division 2. So the question now is this: are they going to be able to implement things that really did work in a Division 1? And are they going to be able to bring those things to a Division 3? Are they also going to be able to merge them with things that did work in a Division 2 and merge them into the Division 3? It's a very interesting, outlook, because to be very fair and to be honest, I see, and I talk with a lot of division agents. Some people say they love Division 1. It's not the same as Division 2. They love the atmosphere. They love so many things about it. But in my own opinion, I just like both games, and I accept both games as different games. To be very frank, I think the Division 3 most likely needs to take another direction in order to just kind of remove itself from so many of the different things that have, in a sense, bogged down the Division 1 and Division 2. I talked about this in a stream of mine, and somebody asked me, what is my perfect version of a Division 3? And I said, my perfect version of a Division 3 is the game is dedicated highly to the PvE side, and the PvP is dedicated PvP fully. And the Dark Zone is something that does find itself at the core and the center of the story. And that is something that the Division 1 actually did have. The Division 1 had a very strong core with the Dark Zone. In fact, the Dark Zone literally sat in the middle of the map of the game. Whereas in the Division 2, it seems like the developers push the Dark Zone aside, where you can see even from the physical, design, the Dark Zone sits at the edges of the map. And if you look at the lore and the story in Washington, D.C. as to why they had 3 different Dark Zones, it wasn't a good selling point from the lore and from the story. Whereas the Dark Zone in New York, that flowed very naturally to tell you that, hey, we had this particular quarantine zone and it didn't work out, and it started to fester all kinds of baddies who then took over. So we decided to seal it off, and now you have this no man's land that you can go into. I think that's something that they need to ensure that they bring back into the game and make it a core aspect of the story, where there's so many different events and so many things that do happen, and the game can take a different direction. Because I think at the end of the day, what's going to happen is, even if there are systems that we miss from the Division 2 and systems that are not in the Division 2, there's no problem. You can always go back to Division 2, play it once in a while, put it down, and then pick up a new aspect and a new iteration of a Division franchise. I think one thing the Division has going for it is the fact that at least the developers are willing to try something new. For those who always say we need some of the very similar things that came from the Division 1 into the Division 2, or we need some of those things to go into Division 3, I hope you know exactly what you're asking for. We are at risk of running into the same problems that Assassin's Creed is now running into, where a lot of those same things are being brought into this new IPs that they're making, the old stuff, and nothing seems to be changing very much, and it's starting to bog down those games. Now I know there have been 20-something plus Assassin's Creed games. I get it. And the Division is still young. So I think right now, because of the life of the Division in its own right, it has enough room compared to other Ubisoft IPs to make errors and make mistakes and amend until it finds itself in a really solid spot. But I don't know what all of this is going to come, to. I think we may have DLC before the Division 3 announcement. I think it's a solid thing to do. Even if they're going to do it at a loss, I think they need to do it. I think they need to go ahead and say, hey, take this map, take this activity, PvP, PvE, survival, whatever the heck it is they want to call it. And that's going to bring people to the table, and we're able to push to have our third game launch very well. For those who may be saying it's too early for a third game, welcome to Ubisoft's strategy. This is what we always have to deal with. I mean, you're seeing the other games. In fact, if you move into 2021, you're going to be seeing other Ubisoft sequels come out. There's Far Cry 6 coming out. I mean, the Division, we're only on 3, so I think we can get a third one if other Ubisoft IPs and titles are going that direction. There's more to talk about with this. Redstorm showing up just a few days ago, basically changing their whole Twitter. It's almost obvious right now that there's something going on with the Division IP and the Division franchise. It's too much of a golden goose for this studio to put down. Trust me. Anyways, that's it for me. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Do you really think that we are looking at a Division 3, or do you think that that is just basically conjecture and there's no way that any of this stuff is going to happen. Let me know your thoughts. See you in another video. Peace.